Well, we are officially live on the air right now on my YouTube channel. We might be on George's platform as well. I hope we are. For those of us joining us live, welcome to this Counterflow live session, and those of you that are joining us later on, I hope we had a good time and that you're going to love what you hear. I'm honored to be joined by what a prestigious panel. I feel like I don't belong here. I might have to hide in the background a little bit here, but this is exciting for me. And so I'll let each person in each window introduce themselves, but I'll start briefly with a bio on people. First and foremost, we've got Father John Whiteford with us. He's the archpriest and pastor at St. Jonah Orthodox Church in Spring, Texas. We are very blessed to have him here with us. We've got, well, we don't have Jim Jatras. We're going to see. He might be joining us soon. He's having some connection issues. We also have, you see there, George and Gail Michalopulos. My favorite last name to say. I hope I'm saying it correctly. The brains behind and the beauty behind the Monachmos blog, which is a wonderful source for content on politics, culture, and religion. And my friend, you know her. Some of you know her as Dissident Mama. We know her as Rebecca Dillingham as well. She is very good at smashing sacred cows with, how do you say that? Not a whimper. With
a bang, not a whimper.
Bang, not a whimper. There you go. So all of you guys, welcome to Counterflow Live, and I'm glad to do this with you guys. For the people listening, what we're going to do here is basically there was an article put out by National Public Radio News Agency, NPR, as many of you know them, and it was a little bit of a knock, in my opinion, on Orthodox Christianity. And so we're going to get into that. But first, before we do, I want all of these people here to give their own intro for the audience watching on who you are and what you do. And Father John, we will start with you.
Okay, well, as you mentioned, I'm the rector of St. Jonah Orthodox Church. I also edit the St. Innocent liturgical calendar, which is the English version of the Jordanville liturgical calendar. And I have a blog and got 2 daughters and 2 granddaughters, and batting 1,000 on female descendants so far. And, and a genetic Texan born in California, but back in Texas since the age of 10.
Excellent. In my home state, right here in this big state. And George and Gail, we will go to you guys.
Well, I'm George, and this is Gail Shepherd, the brains and the beauty behind Monachmos blog. And we're just a couple of old fuddy-duddies. Actually, I've been rocking the cradle here. So
okay, I'll take over.
Okay, you take over.
Thank you so very much for that introduction.
Okay.
I don't feel bad, but I couldn't say
last
I couldn't spell it, so I kept Shepherd until I can get that flowing off my tongue. I've been married about 2.5 years, so you'd think I'd know by now. I'm from California also. I spent most of my life there. I've been in healthcare. I'm now retired, but about 40 some years as a project manager and later as a consultant, which really has helped me kind of unravel the COVID and now the monkeypox.
Monkeypox, the next thing.
All places of where we are. So in George and I have known each other quite a few years, since 2009 when he first started the blog. Mm-hmm. And I used to just be a commenter, right? And then I started doing some editing for you. Yes, and then sort of taking over the editorial or the comments.
Yes.
Because I wanted people like the esteemed Father John Whiteford to feel comfortable looking at our blog. It was like a free-for-all at the beginning.
It was. I lost control of it, and Gail she tightened it up. She really did.
Well, thank you, sweetheart. So we really enjoy what we're doing. We have a lot in common, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Rebecca, Dissident Mama, tell the people what they should know.
I am a wife and a mom of 3 teenage boys. Pray for me, y'all. I've been doing the Dissident Mama blog for 5+ years and podcasting for just over 2. I was chrismated into the Holy Orthodox Church in December 2017, and I like walks on the beach and hikes up mountains and all that kind of stuff too. No, but I'm just kind of a rabble rouser because sometimes things got to be shaken up when all heck is breaking loose. So that's about it.
Jim, you are with us. You're with us once again. For those watching, there were some connection issues that Mr. Jim Jatras had. Can you hear us? Are you all good, Jim?
I hear you fine. Can you hear me?
We got you. Yeah.
Good.
Wow. The wonders of modern technology, huh?
I'll
It
say.
can be used for good.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
We are live right now on the air. So, Jim, could you kind of give a little intro of who you are and what you do so the folks can get the lowdown on you?
Well, very, very briefly, I was of Greek origin, raised in a military family, was a foreign service officer, that's to say in the diplomatic service for several years, and then worked for many years at the U.S. Senate Republican leadership, primarily on foreign policy topics. And then I was an evil Washington lobbyist for several years, and now I am officially retired. I have 2 daughters, 5 grandchildren, do some writing and speaking. Not so much writing anymore, but some commentary on political, international, and other issues, and including, of course, those affecting the Orthodox Church.
And for those listening we're on my YouTube channel, but if some of you I can see even by the comments are new to my channel. So just a quick intro. I'm Buck Johnson. I host the Counterflow podcast. I'm just a lowly catechumen in the Orthodox Church. I attend the wonderful St. Andrew's Parish here in Lockhart, Texas, where Father Ignatius is my priest, and everyone at this church is amazing. And so they've welcomed me into quite an amazing world, and I'm glad to be part of this. And so I was very honored to be asked, to host this little roundtable session. And I guess we'll get right into it. Like I said, there was an NPR article, a little bit clunky in my opinion, and it seemed to be somewhat of a hit piece, although even for a hit piece, a bit, in my opinion, on the sloppy side. It was called Orthodox Christian Churches Are Drawing in Far-Right American Converts. It was written by Odette Youssef, and it's about the experience of an author named Sarah Riccardi Swartz and her apparent study focused on a community mostly former evangelical Christians and Catholics who had joined the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, we know as ROKOR, at a parish in a small town in West Virginia. And there's a few things, I don't want to taint this too much before we start with my own opinions, but there was some things that you would imagine when someone's trying to take cheap shots. Since 2016, there's a couple of R words that we've heard quite a bit. One of them's Russia, the other one's racist, and they use these. Usually when people use those 2 words, I kind of tune out after they say them because it's usually not well thought out. That's kind of what this article, from my perspective, focused on, and it seemed unfair. And so I'm glad to get a chance to host this roundtable with people that know a lot more about this stuff than I do. And so I guess I'll start with Father John, kind of what your thoughts on this article were, and if you'd like to refute it, we can get into the weeds at some point, but we'll start with you on kind of what you saw here.
Well, one thing I think that is notable about the article is every Orthodox person that was quoted in the article is pro-homosexual and pro-abortion and the whole bit. So we're not talking about a representative group of people who speak for the Orthodox Church. And I'm just about finished with Sarah Riccardi Swartz's book, and it's a poorly written book in my opinion. And there's a lot of weird quirks about it. She uses pseudonyms for the monastery itself, for the city that it's in, and for most of the people who are in there. But the thing is, almost anyone who knows anything about the monastery knows who she's talking about. I almost think she used pseudonyms because she didn't want people to actually look up the monastery and find out more information about it. But essentially, the case that she's been making for a couple of years now is that ROKOR is sort of the 5th column for Vladimir Putin, that we're just all anxiously awaiting Vladimir Putin's landing forces to invade the United States so that we can whip out our Soviet banners and our AK-47s and join in the fight. And it's one of the most ridiculous things that you've ever heard, because there are these things called nuclear weapons, and the the Russians are not likely to try to invade the United States, just like we wouldn't try to invade Russia, because we would know that we would soon cease to exist. So it's a ridiculous book, and this article reflects that same kind of ridiculous nonsense. And I think she got on the trail because she started her research right around the time when the Russia collusion hoax began, and so she capitalized on that, and she's gained an audience because there's lots of people who are eagerly looking for more evidence to support the idea that Russia's plotting the violent overthrow of the United States, and got Trump in office and all this sort of nonsense, and she's been milking it ever since.
Jim, we'll go to you on some of your thoughts here.
Thank you. As it happens, I was on my way back from that monastery in West Virginia, coming back home when I heard the NPR piece on the radio, and my first reaction was, thank you for noticing that when they basically try to attack Orthodoxy, and specifically ROCOR, for all these people who reject all of the lies and the distortions of American identity and American history, and are saying they're being drawn to Orthodoxy. Great, I think that's a wonderful thing. And as I think Father John pointed out, yes, all these people are pro-abortion, pro-LGBT, all this sort of thing. And of course, then they throw the racism in and all the rest of it. And I think more and more Americans are beginning to understand that these are just simply curse words. They're the words like calling you a fascist or a communist or something like that, because they basically discredit you if you call you bad names. What in fact, if you actually examine these things, we're talking about people who essentially believe what most Americans believed just a few decades ago, that this is part of who we are as Americans. And the fact that we now have parishes, the parish I mostly attend is St. Herman of Alaska in Stafford, Virginia. It's about 80% ethnic Americans, if we can call them that. And the other 20% there's some Russians and some Greeks, the occasional Serb and Romanian, and so forth. It's a very nice microcosm of what Orthodoxy should be in this country. One last thing I would note is Rod Dreher, in the American Conservative, I thought wrote a basically good piece in refutation of NPR. I do think he's sort of let standing in all their falsity, all the talk about white nationalism and racism, without forcing anybody to actually confront what they're talking about. That just when we talk like we talk about abortion or LGBT, we're talking about women's rights or about marriage equality. Those are, of course, distortions of the real thing. And when people attack you for being a racist or a white nationalist, what they're really saying is you're not a self-loathing person who accepts the Ibrahim Kendi and Robin DiAngelo notion of race relations in this country that essentially demonize the American identity. And I think that should have been spelled out. And I think we'll maybe touch upon that today, is that if Orthodoxy is tapping into what is left of a healthy American self-awareness, I think that's a wonderful thing. So I think we should thank NPR for this piece.
Yeah, that's a sentiment I noticed from a few people whose opinions I trust, is kind of well, thanks NPR, you made us look good in a way, because I think the sentiment is people who can think through things and who can reason and read through some of the buzzwords of the day, the fashionable words of the day, will see some of this and go, well, I'm actually kind of interested in some of this stuff. If you could look past the slurs, of course, that they throw out there. George and Gail, I'll let you guys go at this next.
If you don't mind, I'd like to turn this over to Gail, because Gail had an excellent insight. We had knowledge to that. And honey, would you like to say about the bar and all that? It's something that didn't occur to me, but she.
Well, Father John we had a lot of contact online when I was first coming into the church, which was in 2003. And becoming Orthodox was not easy for me as a convert. I had to change, and I had to leave some family behind and friends behind. It wasn't, come to the church and have a barbecue the next day. I had to fight for it. I had to fight myself to be into the church or in the church. And I treasure that. So I'm supremely insulted. And the next thought that comes to me is, what church are you in? It's not the Orthodox Church. It's like they're just name calling, frankly. And I'm thinking, why? I can't help but wonder what they're trying to lower the bar. If we could just tweak this, if we could just have abortion and just have same-sex marriage, then the church would be perfect. I really cannot get my brain around that. And like I said, as a convert, it's insulting because it is so really difficult to raise to that bar, or at least try for the bar. And these people don't seem to have a bar. It's like everything goes, and you are not okay because you won't accept that from me. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't say it better, really. I mean, really, I couldn't.
Rebecca?
I think it is a purposeful subversion because they use the word a lot. And I actually did searches for words in the article. Putin 10 times, white nationalist, white nationalism, nationalistic, and Christian nationalist. Those were 8 times. Extremist 6, Heimbach 6, nativist 5 times, far right 4 times, alt-right twice, racism and racist only twice, anti-Semitic and anti-Semitism only twice. A couple of shout outs to Charlottesville, of course. You got to like hammer home that template. But the word that they used most, 18 convert, converts, or converted. This is what they do not want to happen. They do not want Orthodoxy growing. They want it growing where it is growing, in the southern United States of America. And so they are using every tool in their cultural Marxist tool belt to throw at us. And I would like to get into later on the network and the ecosystem. Those are SPLC words. And there is a cabal, a literal cabal that I can connect the dots of people, all women, who are subverting the church because they do not want people to be saved. End of story.
Rebecca, if you don't mind me asking, are these women in the church? You're talking about this.
Well, it would be Sarah Riccardi Swartz. She's married to a subdeacon. I know they were at Pascha 2022. I don't know where. Hannah Gase, she's a religion and Orthodox expert for the SPLC. I've searched up to see if she's Orthodox. I have no idea.
I remember she used to say she was, so I assume she still is.
Right. And then you can throw Arazi, and he's not a woman, but his writing's pretty lame. So you can say
he's also not Orthodox. He's an Armenian.
He's not. Right. So, and of course, Gail, you and I, we write with the big boys. So I'm just joking there. But my point is that, they make it very on who they are, where they come from, and what they want. They tell everything in and all these words, all the words, all the buzz talking about. But they act like we're the fringe list, and we want the traditional Orthodox Church to grow and blossom. The dogma of the fathers, right? We want it to be biblical. We don't want to change it. And they act like we're the fringe, and that they are the majority, and they are not. They have funding, right? NPR, we all pay for them, right? We pay for this piece, y'all. The National Endowment for the Humanities, both Sarah and Aram Sarkeesian are both through Fordham University, who hates all of us. So it's if anybody has the power and the ecosystem and the network, it's them. And they hate that we exist because we speak against them, and we speak truth to power, because that's all that matters, because we care about the salvation of our friends, ones, and our children.
Rebecca, can you touch upon, you mentioned Fordham. That's something that was new to me. What is the deal with Fordham and their view on Eastern Orthodoxy? And it seems to be that they don't like a lot of people that I do like and have respect for. What's going on with that?
Well, I'll give this off to George, but I'll just give the overview that Fordham, I have no idea if that's a good university. It's a university in New York, so it's probably a hellhole. But they have something called the Orthodox Christian Study Center, and it's headed up by some people who are Orthodox, some who are not, but they are all left wing. I mean, off the hinges left wing. You know, this is ancient Mama's liberalism. You know, it unhinged. So George and written and done a lot of stuff on that. So George knows way more about the Fordhamites than I do.
Well, I'd like to think that I came up with the word Fordhamite.
Yes, he did.
But maybe I didn't. Maybe it was in the ether. Anyway, it's a Jesuit university in New York State, and that's not a good thing on many different levels. Jesuit specifically. Gail and I know quite a few traditional Catholics, and they just had it. You know, I mean, with the Jesuits, and of course the big Jesuit is Pope Francis. Anyway, so for some reason, and I don't know how this happened, they got two Greek American Orthodox, Papa Nicolau and I can't remember the other guy. Maybe
George Michalopulos.
George Michalopulos, Papa Nicolau, and they ensconced them there, and they've got a really cushy job there, you know, and it's like the chair of Byzantine studies or something, and they're safe from having to be subsidized by the Greek Archdiocese and ordinary Orthodox Christians in America because they've got a cushy gig, and you know they're just doing what the Jesuits want them to do, which is try to subvert Orthodoxy just like they've subverted Catholicism. I'll turn that over to Jim. I think he's got more information there.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
Again, I hope you can hear me still. I'm getting signals that it may be bad. Yeah, you're right. I think you've said it all about Fordham being a liberal Jesuit university. You also have the Huffington Center at Loyola Marymount University, and I think you put the hammer on the nail. Is that what these people have done to the Roman Catholic Church? They want to now do to the Orthodox Church. That you have this, you know, as I think Archbishop Vigano calls it, the Lavender Mafia, that essentially is controlling the Roman Curia, and I think a lot of people in these academic types who are, you know, look, I'm not mind reader, I can't read their hearts, but they identify as Orthodox, but I think their mentality is that of liberal Episcopalians or Roman Catholics, and they want to do to our church what has been done to these other churches, and it's very useful for people like at NPR.
Father John Whiteford, do you have any thoughts on Fordham or any education for us laymen?
Well, it'd be very interesting to find out exactly where their funding is coming from, because they're obviously well funded. They're busting out an article a day practically. They're translating these articles into other languages like Serbian, Russian, and Greek, because obviously somebody wants them to influence the Orthodox world as a whole. And so they're there to subvert orthodoxy. And you'll notice that they never take any positions that run contrary to the State Department talking points, because while they're very concerned about what's going on in Ukraine, they haven't uttered a peep about what's going on in Syria, because in Syria we have the United States government occupying 10% of the country, the oil fields in particular, depriving the government of their mineral wealth, which they could use to feed their people. And about 600,000 people have been killed in that war. That's a United States regime change war that's been going on for, I think, about 10 years now. And but they haven't said anything about that, even though that war threatens the existence of one of the four ancient patriarchs that we have remaining in the Orthodox Church. Okay. And so if they care about the world orthodoxy, they should be concerned that the Patriarchate of Antioch might cease to exist. But they don't, because that would run contrary to the people that are paying their bills. The other thing I would point out is that in Russia, and I'm told that even the KGB, when they wanted to have use a word to describe a low-down, backstabbing snake in the grass, they would call him an Izuit. Because for KGB people, the Jesuits typify backstabbing, low-down snakes in the grass.
I didn't know that.
I either.
Oh, geez, that is funny.
Why us? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? I don't see them going to this extent to undermine the church. Or maybe I'm just not aware of what they're doing.
Well, I wanted to get to that, and interesting timing, possibly. Why now? Why orthodoxy?
Yeah.
In my own personal experience and circle of people I associate with, there's an upswell with interest in orthodoxy, and I think the issues that we witnessed over 2020 and 2021 are part of that. And I think that it's natural for the human soul to experience hardships and then maybe look towards capital T truth. And I think that could be going on. I don't know, but it is interesting timing. Rebecca, do you have thoughts on why this is happening now? Or maybe that it's just NPR. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's not. Okay, Jim, let's go to you then.
Jim, let's say something. Yeah.
Yeah. Just very briefly, I don't know if the State Department and the U.S. government have any direct connection with these academic outfits at places like Fordham, but they certainly do in the overall policy we have toward undermining Christianity, especially in Eastern Europe and in the Orthodox countries, and weaponizing LGBT ideology, especially. The article made a point of mentioning what Patriarch Kirill said about the Washington wanting to force all these countries to have pride parades. And that's undoubtedly true. This is one of the litmus tests of Western policy about whether you're really democratic, whether you really respect human rights, is whether you enshrine the rainbow flag as some kind of a holy symbol and incorporate this into your society. So I think, unfortunately, we're seeing a kind of a convergence of this, sort of hate campaign being launched against Russia. And we could argue about the pros and cons of the war that's currently going on in Ukraine, but there's no question that we are very, very close to something like a direct military confrontation with Russia, and then going all the way back really in this country to the whole Russiagate false campaign from 2016. And I think this is one of the ways you can really try to blacken a community, is by saying, oh, these people are so bad, they're mixed up with the Russians who hate pride parades and gay things and so forth, and try to tie this all together into one of the big, phantasmagoria of evil and racism and homophobia and, Putin puppetry and all this other sort of thing. So I think it's very well aimed at trying to dissuade some Americans from saying, well, these people are the ground zero for everything that's hateful of our democracy. I think the problem is that there are an awful lot of Americans who hear that dog whistle and they reach the opposite conclusion. Gosh, if an outfit like NPR is trying to tear them down with all these buzzwords, they must be pretty good folks.
Yeah, it's backfiring.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And they set the stage, I noticed in the article. Maybe it was subtle, an attempt at subtlety. It didn't seem so subtle, but it started with something like, in a small Appalachian town. And I think that's that your average NPR listener or reader hears that and thinks, I automatically think these people are backwards and probably ignorant and forts. And
deliberate.
This is something that Rebecca speaks on and talks about quite a lot. So I'll let you have the tape of the floor. Excuse me, Rebecca.
Yeah, and that's all done by design, of course, saying Appalachia, backwoods Yahoo, superstitious, uneducated. And they, of course, mention the word Confederacy once in the story as well, because that is just, the template for exactly what we're just saying. These horrible people, segregationists and cross burners, et cetera, et cetera. And another thing that I thought was very interesting with the buildup at the beginning, the intro with Sarah Riccardi Swartz, is she said it's an immigrant faith. And then Youssef used that exact same quote that she had reworded. She actually said, I think she said something to the effect of it's sort of an immigrant faith. And then she says that again. And obviously orthodoxy is for everybody. And this is what she's upset about. I know the priest that married her wrote an article saying Orthodoxy is for everybody. So this is something she acts like she doesn't know what, and I'm talking about her because really crafted around Sarah Hardy Swartz, who I call hyphen girl because she hyphenates your last name. So anyway, hyphen girl. So it's she just coming out, Fordham published. So see, we're connecting the dots here, just like the SPLC has the of guilt by association. We can do that too, right? I can do that all day long because this is a small group of people who are constantly recycling. And I guess your question for me earlier was, why is this happening now? It's cycled all the time. Father John Whiteford and I are co-founders of a fellowship that is trying to evangelize to people in the southern United States. And we had us written by the Fordham web blog back in December, horrible we are, yada, yada, yada. And we don't care, you know? So, you know, I guess the point is that it is recycled and they do it over and over and over. And they do not like competition. They want a monopoly on everything. They say that we're taking internet, even though they have, again, NPR, you know, Public Orthodoxy, Fordham University, you know, all sorts of grants and stuff coming out of their ears. I mean, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is the main amount of money NPR gets. So again, we all pay for that, and they get tons of money. And just recently, back in February, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting wanted to, they got more money to boost and ramp up coverage for Russia's aggression and their invasion of democratic Ukraine. You don't tell me this isn't all connected. You know, these are the same people who are paying Yusuf's salary. Yusuf is giving all this information. People who are making bank, you know, they're making good money doing this stuff, you know, that is just subversion, recycled over and over and over again. And they cross all their paths and they just recycle it over and over and say all the same words. And I find it interesting that they didn't use the word white supremacy in the art. And that's weird. They were doing this whole nationalist thing. And whoever brought this up on this panel was brilliant because they've defined no terms. You know, what is racism? What is nationalism? What the heck is Christian nationalism? Let's have discussions. They just use these words over and over, and converts do it, and we're bad, and we all need to be thrown in a gulag. The end of the story for them, you know?
Well, I can tell you, they do have a point. Do you mind, Beth, if I interject something here on what Rebecca said? It is recycled over and over again. And what they're doing is they're making us look good. I mean, I hear them and I think, oh my gosh. And we get more people walking into the parish saying, yeah, you know, on the internet. Yeah. And, you know, my introduction to Orthodoxy, and I don't want to embarrass Father John, but with Sola Scriptura and listening to him. This is the way we communicate with other people. And I think they sense that we're genuine and this is real, but they keep rehashing this stuff, crap, over and over again, and they look bad. And I was asking George, who are these academics? They seem stupid to me. It's just not that even good.
Well, college education has been debased over the last 20 years, actually, since I was there.
But still,
it's just gotten
better.
It's gotten worse, and people know how to use big words like dynamic and aesthetic and stuff like that, but they don't know anything. I mean, it's
well, it's like she's saying, they keep using the same words over and over again.
Yeah, they're not an original thought in their body.
No,
I mean,
not an original thought in their body.
Father John, Rebecca alluded to this being recycled. Is this the kind of thing you've seen as an Orthodox priest over the years? Is this kind of nothing new to you?
Well, this line of attack is not something that used to happen. I think that the Hillary Clinton attempt to get people's attention away from the fact that she had had a server using her own private email when it was contrary to the law for her to do so, and also to get away from the fact, or to distract people from the fact that she had been party to selling something like 20% of the uranium reserves of the United States to a Russian company. she concocted this Russian hoax. And I think if there is a historian to write about World War III in the future, they're probably going to say that Russia hoax was a primary factor in leading to the conflict that we're seeing right now, which could develop into World War III. And, if you look at this from Russia's perspective, they've been continuously accused of stuff that they didn't do. They've been trying to negotiate a peaceful settlement in Ukraine for 8 years. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, one could imagine that they just throw up their hands and say, well, obviously there's no talking to these people. And whereas if we had not had this hoax, we might have been able to come to reasonable terms with Russia, and none of this would have happened. And another thing I can tell you is this stuff has real world consequences. My wife is on a Facebook group for priest wives, and there were 2 other ROCOR priest wives that said that their parish had been sort of put on notice by the FBI that they were being watched. I had the FBI knock on my door on April the 7th. I know that because it was Annunciation. I was chilling after the liturgy with my granddaughter on my lap, and I get a knock on the door. And this guy, the first thing out of his mouth was, we're aware that you had a terrorist threat some time back. And we know with all the stuff going on in Ukraine, we were concerned about your safety. And I'm thinking, okay, when we actually had a terrorist threat against our church in June of 2020, I couldn't get them to call me back. I had to use a connection I had with someone who was connected to the lieutenant governor of the state of Texas, who contacted the FBI. And finally, I got a call back, and they still did nothing. I never got a home visit, but now I'm getting a home visit because you're concerned about my safety. And once he got in my house, he actually was only asking about things like, have you had any contact with the Russian consulate? Have you had any contact with the Russian consul general? Does the Russian government have any influence over your church? And so this kind of nonsense, conspiracy theory, blue anon, LGBTQ anon garbage actually results in people being put under the microscope by the FBI. And the thing is, we should know by now that you don't have to be guilty of anything to actually wind up being prosecuted by the FBI. And I think a lot of the questions I was being asked, they already knew the answers to. They were just trying to see if I was going to lie about it so they could use that as leverage or just to prosecute. And the other thing that the FBI does is, and this is something I think every Orthodox parish, especially ROCOR parishes, need to be on guard for, is they look for people who are susceptible to being talked into doing something illegal, and they concoct a terrorist plot, get those people involved in it, and then they bust it and present to the media that they busted up a Al-Qaeda plot to blow up such and such. Well, they could easily do that with some people who are on the autism spectrum or something in our parishes if we're not careful and watch out for that. And so this is serious stuff. People wind up in jail because of these kinds of investigations, and they don't have to be guilty.
Or worse, and again, I'm sorry to interject, but we were told, well, I was told I was on a Russian list, and
we were also on Right-Wing Watch.
This one guy, put us out there for everybody, is this, extreme group, and he says, well, I can't get to you, but one of them will. I mean, it's essentially a threat, and there's nothing we can do. Those are the territory, yes.
George, you're on Right-Wing Watch?
Yeah.
I know. Shock.
Yeah, that's awesome. Way to go.
All over Twitter. We were at that speaking rally, and the guy after us, who was he? Some you might know who he is, Rebecca, very controversial guy.
Oh, one of the Oath Keepers, I think.
Oath Keeper.
This was back in January. Jim, we were there in December 2020, about the 12th, wasn't it?
Something
at the
like
Stop
that.
the Steal thing.
Well, he happened to come, and I didn't even, I didn't even look behind me, but apparently we're linked, and I support him, and not that I don't even know him, but it doesn't matter.
I quoted Solzhenitsyn, by the way. I just thought it would. Anyway,
it did something to somebody.
That white nationalist.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, on Twitter, I turned it around on him. You know, he was saying Gail Shepherd said this, Gail Shepherd. And I said, you know, women don't like to be stalked. Oh, that shut him down. The Twitter authorities were on him because
Pulled out the girl card.
well, you know,
hey,
I wanted
it works.
to
It
be
works, babe. I
stalked.
get it. You know,
Yes.
I mean, whatever.
Made him out to be a stalker.
Yeah.
He is a stalker.
Yeah.
Also,
Well-
one of the things that the article did was they interviewed one Russian woman who's married to a black man, and she says that when she got married back in the 80s in her Seacliff parish, Seacliff, New York, that everyone was quite accepting, but she just made this assertion that now her children don't feel comfortable in this church because of this network of converts. Well, her children would be in their 20s or maybe even in their 30s by now, and given the fact that both their parents went to Ivy League schools, I would expect that they did too. So they've probably been indoctrinated into critical theory and all the Marxist nonsense. I have never encountered parishes in Rocor where people are made to feel uncomfortable because of their race. My wife is Chinese. My daughters are obviously half Chinese. They never were made to feel odd. We have black people in our parish. We have Hispanic people in our parish. We have other Asian people in our parish. And I've never heard anybody complain that they were made to feel uncomfortable because they weren't white. And so I just don't believe it. And it seems like if you're going to
Research for Father John. I researched that gal. You want to know about her?
Say?
I researched that gal. Lena Zezuan. You want to know about her?
Yeah, I don't know.
She's a lawyer. Degrees. She's going to be speaking at a Sister Vasa conference in June, y'all. Let's all go. Called Women's Orthodoxy in War. So she's going to be speaking at it. The reason I researched her, there's no links in this essay. I'm a journalist. Provide me some links. Miss Youssef or Ms., whatever you go by. There are no links at all. And this is just the exact type of manipulation they do in their rhetorical war they have. They not only don't want consent, they just want to make these hugely insane broad brush statements and provide no link. And Sarah Riccardi Swartz recently screenshotted something of mine, and I was like, dang, that's good writing. And then I realized it was mine. I was like, oh, she's screenshotting me. That's awesome. And then, of course, some normal-ish piece of the source. And then she's like, oh, it's Dissident Mama. I don't like leaking to her stuff. But are there any links in this entire 2,200-word screed? Hardly any. So, I just looked this chick up myself because that's what smart people do. Hello, we look up your sources and we can see that they're full of bunk. So anyway, and that's just one of those things. So one gal, who's married to a black man, and why is he not quoted? Maybe they're racist because they didn't quote a black man. How do you like them apples? So it's just all ridiculous. And why is it all women other than Aram Sarkeesian? It's always women running this show. No wonder they hate the patriarchy, because they just want to dominate.
It's the year of the woman, but not you and me. That's right.
When this woman made the assertion that her children were made to feel uncomfortable because of all these racists in Rocor, it seems like a follow-up question will be, well, exactly what happened that made them feel that way? Give me some example. What happened? Because I don't believe it. I think it's made up. I think that maybe they felt uncomfortable theoretically because they were hearing about stuff going on, but never actually experienced themselves. I just don't believe that it ever happened.
Jim, you've been raising your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Earlier, Father John, about how close we are possibly to having a war with Russia, and I think unfortunately that is true. Maybe in a sense we already are at war, in a proxy war with Russia in Ukraine. We also keep in mind that thing in the White House, the husk of Joe Biden, has identified white nationalism as the greatest threat to American national security. That's the thing that the Justice Department and DHS are most focused on as this threat to the United States. And here's this article putting it together. We can laugh and have our fun and say how incompetent this is, how stupid the writing is, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really deadly serious. With the world teetering on the brink of a world war, with America showing signs of coming apart at the seams, let's be honest, the idea that the apparatus of government that's run with this woke ideology is going to come down on dissenters like a ton of bricks at some point is something I think we need to be very conscious of, that, this is part of setting the narrative for who are the enemies of the people out there, who are the evil, racist, Russian puppets, et cetera, who are trying to destroy our democracy and, kill trans people or something. And, this is kind of the demonization that you set up for a population you're trying to sort of herd into a kind of a ghetto to say these people are not real human beings. They're traitors, they're racists, they're homophobes, they're every bad thing you can think of, and they deserve at some point to be treated not like Americans should be treated under the laws of the Constitution.
We're domestic terrorists.
Yeah, there you go. Insurrectionists. Yeah.
Anti-democratic too. That's another thing that they had to mention quite a few times. Anti-democratic.
And some of us are even monarchists.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
And I would say from my own personal feelings on some of the stuff you're saying, Jim, the sad thing is my experience in my Orthodox church is when things are coming apart at the seams, and if they do come apart at the seams, it's been the most welcoming, loving group of people, diverse too. I know that's an important word. That I've ever been around, and there's no one I'd rather be around if things do come apart at the seams. And so it can have effects, articles like this. So it's sad if it would change someone's mind or sway someone away from what I've found to be the most genuine, loving group of people ever that I've ever been around. Jim?
Yeah, that's right. And, and that's where there's a certain irony here, because, you don't have to accept everything that the wokesters say about, LGBT and race and all these other things to recognize that there are some people that occasionally show up. I like to mention high on the autism spectrum, because we do tend to get a lot of those in Orthodoxy, especially young men. And a lot of them do come to us as kind of broken people with kind of bizarre notions of, whether it's about race or sexuality and lots of other things, because they are sort of running away from a society that itself is become pathological, but they're not healthy either. And one thing that they do when they come to Orthodoxy is I think they do find and I'll say it, true Christianity, a healing, the power of the Holy Spirit, the direct encounter with the living God in Jesus Christ, and that their counter narrative hostility to all the propaganda of the wokeness doesn't go away. But what it does is it's put into a more healthy and more spiritually fulfilling context where all of that anger, all of that kind of focus on this or that small issue in human life tends to sort of fade away a little bit, and they become just more normal human beings, more functional human beings. And I think that's a wonderful thing. It's really a miracle.
It is a miracle.
It is. I agree. That's I like that, Jim. I mean, really.
And what would God have us do? I understand what you're saying, Jim, and you're absolutely right. But what else can we do? I'm not going to shrink away and not defend my church. I can't. It's not within me to do that. And I don't think anyone here could say that that's an alternative for us. It isn't. And I don't know what's going to happen. I certainly see what you're going to say. I certainly see what you're saying. May God protect us, because we're still going to walk on the same path.
Yeah, and I think being on the defensive is just not the way to go, because like Jim said, this is coming hurtling toward us, and the left has no moral ground at all. That's why when I read the Dreher, pretty good for Dreher, I guess, but that's the disclaimers about race, blah, blah. Like point that even people say that anymore is ridiculous. Because if there's any racism in the United States of America, it's targeted at my children. So this is ridiculous with the disclaimers. And, you know, I will not defend my church because my church is 100% right. My parish is wonderful. And the autistic people that come to it, myself being one of them, we're all a little bit on the spectrum, y'all, right? But you know, it's because this society treats those people like utter trash and they need love. And these left-wingers, whether they're in the church or not, they do not love. They do not love. And it's like that woman, Lena Zuzulon said, what am I supposed to do? Pray for both sides? Yup.
Yes.
That's what
you're
the gospel
supposed to
says.
do.
Yes. Yes. Father John, I'll pass it back to you. For people that might have seen that article, or certainly people that I know for a fact will be watching this stream that are curious about Orthodoxy, and or now that maybe, you know, I hope no one that follows me would read an NPR article like that and go, well, I don't know, it seems scary. But do people come to you saying, now I'm not sure, what do you have advice on what to do? Anything in that realm?
I've not had inquirers that have expressed any doubts about coming to Orthodoxy because of stuff that they've been hearing on NPR. The unfortunate thing is I think very few people with any sense listen to NPR anymore. I used to listen to it several times a day before they became just a propaganda piece for the U.S. State Department. So I haven't listened to them in years, but I don't think they're affecting the people who are coming in that are interested. But the thing of it is, we mentioned that ROCOR obviously is a fairly insignificant percentage of the population of the United States. But if you think about it in terms of the 1984 2 minutes of hate kind of stuff, they need an enemy. And we make convenient enemies because we belong to a religion that most people don't know much about. They connected us to Russia. And so everybody knows Russia's evil, and we're a bunch of haters. And so it could have some bad real world consequences, and people could wind up being killed as a result of people lashing out, particularly like if we actually did get into a direct war with Russia as a result of this, you could really see people lashing out at ROCOR parishes and people who go there in ways that are far beyond anything we've seen so far.
Not just ROCOR parishes, but any Orthodox
Right.
church, even
Right.
Especially ROCOR,
but
because it's
especially
not Russia,
ROCOR. But yeah, I agree. But I mean, the vast ignorance that is out there, you know. But you know, I did want to say one thing about Miss Odette. Is it Yusuf? What was her last name? Yusuf.
Yeah.
And Jim, you can correct me on this because you were at that monastery, but I do know, I heard from somebody else in ROCOR. Gail and I are not in ROCOR, but somebody else in ROCOR that when she went there, she totally misrepresented herself and ingratiated herself into the lives of the monks, or not lives of the monks, but you know what I'm saying. And then actually twisted a lot of what was said, and they're quite hurt. So I'm just throwing that out there. So just because you're a journalist doesn't mean that you're necessarily
That was Sarah Riccardi
you know.
Swartz, George. You're saying
really?
Sarah Riccardi Swartz,
Yeah.
not you. Yeah.
Okay, well, I was okay then. Okay, I stand.
One thing interesting about the misrepresentation is I know that the first, for at least a good year or two after I saw her stuff popping up on the internet, she was always identified as a member of ROCOR. She would be speaking on a panel at Fordham or some other place, and they would list the jurisdictions of the various speakers, and she would be listed as a member of ROCOR. In her book, she makes it clear that she was never a member of ROCOR. So that was a lie. And I don't believe that she was unaware of that kind of stuff being in her bio, because these are the first times that her name ever appeared in the public with any prominence. And I just don't believe that she didn't pay attention to that, or she could have easily made efforts to correct that impression if she wanted to, but she did not. So it was dishonest. And and she definitely did misrepresent herself to those people, and she certainly misrepresented things that they said. And I can only state my own experience. I was interviewed by her. I agreed to do it in like October of 2020, partly because I still thought she was a member of ROCOR based on these misrepresentations that were in public, but also because I spoke to one of the monks who was a parishioner of mine before he became a monk, and asked him if he thought that she was sincere, and he said that he thought that she was. So I went ahead and did this interview. Well, she interviewed me, and later on she quoted me in an article without giving my name, but I'm pretty sure she was talking about me based on what she said. And she totally misrepresented what I said. I was talking about how things could go really bad for members of ROCOR because of things going on with Russia. And that was in the context of us just having had a terrorist threat against our church. That was what I was talking about. It wasn't because I was concerned. My self-understanding is not that I'm a citizen of the Russian Federation. I care about Russia because it's an Orthodox country, and it obviously has more than a little bit of significance to the current Orthodox Church. But I'm not getting ready to go to war with the United States on Russia's behalf. But I am concerned about her and other people who are promoting fear mongering about Russians, and that having a backlash against people like my parishioners or my church. I had somebody calling for people to burn my church down, and I think it was a credible threat because the guy actually lived it pretty close to my church, and I found out about it because somebody else called me up and screenshotted some stuff that he was sending around. And so when you start thinking about your church being burned down, it starts becoming more than just a Twitter argument. Sure. It has some real world consequences. And so, yeah, I'm concerned about how that the Russia hoax and the kind of stuff, fear mongering that she's promoting could affect people like me and other parishes, because it can, and people can wind up being killed as a result of it. And it will be on people like her if that happens.
Yeah, and after the 9/11 attacks, we saw the news media very, very vocal about, look, don't discriminate against Middle Easterners in the United States, and don't hurt mosques and all of these kind of things. I fear that if things like Father John is discussing were to happen, it'd be a little bit of a silent media in that case, and probably not the same empathy would be my
They had it coming to them. I'm pretty sure that's what they'd say, although they might not put those words, but that's essentially what they'd be getting at.
Yes. Jim, welcome back. I saw before you dropped out quickly. You were raising your hand to say some stuff, and please, the floor is yours, sir. Oh, and your mic is off, by the Jim. We cannot hear you. Oh, he dropped out again. Yes. That's the State Department doing that. I know it. Go ahead, Rebecca.
That's right. I was going to say that's a good segue there, but it's the whole the power structure that these subversives have. Okay, nobody reads NPR except for left-wing wackadoodles, whatever. But it's the power that they have, the institutional power they have. So there was a piece on the SPLC from September 2021 called "Inside the Far Right Podcast Ecosystem." Part 1, building a network of hate. So when I was reading the Yusuf piece, I was like, ecosystem? I've heard that somewhere before. What the heck? Like we're a cancer, right? We're the virus. We're the coof coming to get everybody, right? And so it dawned on me, that was the piece written by Hannah Gase and Megan Squire, the lovely, lovely lady who doxed me. And this was where the ecosystem thing came to be. And within that, this seems like way out here, y'all, but within that, if you look that up, you dare to go to the SPLC website, they have this little dot methodology that tells how you went on this person's podcast, they went on that person's podcast. And so it's this web of hate, right? Well, that's what people do. They go on each other's podcasts, first of all, and some people will go on as of people that they don't agree with. That's just a thing as well. But really, if we were to if our methodology was to be to dot the people spreading this narrative that we are evil spawn, right? That we're anti-democratic, that the founders were pro-democracy. Aram Sarkeesian, you're supposed to be historian. That's not even a thing. But, just be a handful of dots, but it would all be funded by Fordham, by the NEH, by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, just on and on by, Ancient Faith Radio has a lot of these people on too. And so we don't even have a voice there. Although Father John still has his occasional homilies there, thank goodness. But I guess the point of that is it's money, it's power. So even like back to Jim's point a while ago, I was going to lead to Jim, but that it is scary. It is scary because it doesn't take, even though I do think we're the majority of people within just normal people who want to go to liturgy, want to love on people, want to have a relationship with Christ, want to receive the Eucharist, want to have healing. But it doesn't matter because we're not the big mouths, squeaky wheel gets the grease. And really, we just want to be left alone, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well put, Rebecca. You're fired up. Jim, we can't see you, but it does appear that you're back.
There you go.
Can we hear you?
We see you too. Now.
We still, yep.
There is. Oh,
No,
just turn it
no.
off.
No, we can see you. We can't hear you.
We almost had it.
I think it's important to add a footnote here because, especially for the non-Orthodox viewers, they keep hearing Rokor, Russian this, Russian that. And let's remember that on this call, none of us is an ethnic Russian. And in fact, there are only two cradle Orthodox on the call, me and George, and we're both Greeks. And so, there's this tendency, I think sometimes for outsiders, even for people in the Orthodox Church, to see these ethnicity issues, these jurisdictional issues as extremely important. And certainly we have our problems. But the fact is, there's only one Orthodox Church here. And understand that that's really what's at issue with this article, this attempt to smear Orthodoxy as again, I'll say it again, the true tradition of Christianity, and to try to discourage people from coming to it. And so, let's not get bogged down in all these jurisdictional and ethnic issues here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, well put, Jim.
Very well put. Yeah, I agree, Jim.
I want to kind of get to some wrapping up statements. We've been going about an hour, and I got to respect all of y'all's time. And so we'll start. We'll kind of do that, and maybe each person, as cliche as this is, can put a bow tie on this wonderful conversation. And I'll start with Gail and George.
I'm really happy that we all got together, and you're giving me a lot to think about, frankly. And I'm not sure what the answer is. But I am looking at this a little differently after this call. So thank you for putting this together. I really appreciate it.
George?
I'm first of all, Christ is risen. I thank you all for getting together and for including us. This is a very, very flattering to me, and to be in such esteemed company. And the thing is, one thing I will say about what we're going through presently and have been going through the last several years is that it stripped pretty much all the illusions from my life. And that's a good thing. And that hasn't made my life any easier. I don't think it's made any of our lives any easier, but then again, maybe that's what true Christianity is about. And, there's danger down the road. I mean, as Gail said, we've been, harassed online. Rebecca, you've been doxxed. But, I'm not going to stop. It's just, if they're going to take me out, they're going to take me out. It's just the way I feel. I mean, I am not, at the end of the day, I don't want somebody to say, well, why didn't you do something? Even if I fail, okay? At least I tried to do something. And when you take on my church, like these Fortimites do, and my culture, and other Orthodox nations and civilizations, you're getting on the fighting side of me.
And honestly, I want to add a little bit to just like with the icons. Do y'all remember that I don't know, they had some kind of opening, and some woman had taken icons and put like space aliens.
Star Wars figures were made into iconography.
It's hard not.
I think it was a Fordham.
Yeah, it was a Fordham. Yeah. So it's hard not to take it personally. It's like they're trying to get under our skin. Maybe this is already preordained in their minds that we are going to be the target. But it's hard to overlook those things and not to say anything. I mean, it's like spitting on your faith.
Jim, we better get to you. You drop out here and there, and before we do, George, I like the Merle Haggard reference, the fight inside of me. Well done. But Jim, we will get to you, but before we lose you again, any closing remarks?
Yes, very briefly. First off, I apologize for the connectivity problems, but it's the hazard of being a Virginia country gentleman in a remote area these days that I have bad connections. So I want to just thank you, Buck, for inviting me to participate, and also encourage people to check out, Father John and George's Monomachos site and Rebecca's Dissident Mama site. My only online presence these days is on Twitter at Jim Jatras, until I get banned permanently eventually, I assume. So again, I just want to thank everybody for inviting me to this discussion. I hope it helps to show that this thing by NPR will actually be counterproductive to their aims. I think it's a great thing for us, and I hope it's spread far and wide.
Awesome, well put, Jim. You've been an attribute to this conversation. It's awesome. Rebecca, we'll go to you.
Just a couple of things. They made note in the piece that Holy Trinity Orthodox Seminary in Jordanville had declined to answer questions. That is the right way. Lauren Whitsey was asked to be a part of this interview, and they made fun of her because she didn't want to talk. That is the right way, because we know if you open it up like Father John trusted Sarah Riccardi Swartz that time, and they do not care about intellectual honesty or academic rigor, about twisting your words. So I think that's great. I was so happy to hear that Jordanville had said that. So I think that's the way, and I think we stay on the defensive. No more disclaimers. I think satire is a really, really, really effective way of breaking this self-appointed expert status they give themselves. Yusuf calls her a domestic extremism correspondent for NPR. Well, I'm a left-wing extremist correspondent for Dissident Mama. I mean, so what? Who cares? Experts on how crazy they are, right? So, this whole thing, these titles they give themselves, I say we just throw it right back in their face. And as far as that chick, Lena, and her racist parish up in New York, I'd say that's a Yankee problem. Come on down south, Lena. We're doing things right down here. So that's how we turn the tables on them.
Good idea. Good ideas.
Good. Father John Whiteford.
Well, we mentioned that the article focused on the word convert. Sarah Riccardi Swartz, I noticed throughout her book, does that a lot. And for example, she mentions that the property that the Holy Cross Monastery in West Virginia has was donated by Maurice Sill, who they describe as a convert. What they don't mention until very late in the book is that his wife, he had been a convert of long standing, and his wife was actually the daughter of a very prominent Rocor priest, one of the old Rocor families, and she obviously was making the donation too. Sarah Riccardi Swartz is herself a convert. She's not been in the Orthodox Church all that long, and so I don't quite get why she gets on her high horse about converts when she's one herself. She doesn't usually talk about the fact that she is one, and she's obviously not a very good one in terms of the fact that she denies basic teachings of the church. But I find it offensive, as the son of a World War II veteran, as someone who the same month that I was baptized enlisted in the Marine Corps, and have always been a loyal American, to have my patriotism questioned just because I'm a member of a church that has connections to Russia in some way, and also because I don't buy all the narratives that the media is spinning today, and also because I'm not on board with the LGBTQP agenda. When I enlisted in the Marine Corps, I'll never forget, we had a meeting of the people who were on track to go into boot camp, and they had what they called the moment of truth. And they told us that one by one we were going to go and talk to a major, and he was going to just make sure that we hadn't failed to tell them something important. And one of the things they were asking about was whether we were homosexuals. They said, if you've ever done drugs, you hadn't told us about it, if we find out about it, we're going to shave your head in boot camp and send you home. If you ever committed a felony or a misdemeanor and you didn't tell us about it, we're going to shave your head and we're going to send you home. And if you're a homosexual, we don't want you. And so I went for that maid, and he asked me, you ever smoke dope, Mr. Whiteford? Private Whiteford? No, sir. You ever committed any crimes we don't know about? Private Whiteford? No, sir. You homosexual? No, sir. Well, that was America in 1990. And so because I haven't gotten on the LGBTQP train, I'm somehow not I'm an alien. I'm not a loyal American. I'm someone to be suspicious of. I find it offensive, and I guarantee you, if you looked at the various people who were quoted in this article, I'll bet you there's not a single person who has either served in the military or has people in their family who served in the military.
Probably not.
You're probably right.
And it's just that we didn't talk about this. I'm sorry again. I keep butting in, but it's about the South too. There's something weird in their mind about, I guess, us living in the South.
Yeah, we're the whipping boy of American history.
Yep.
Yes. Any further stuff, Father John?
No, I think that's about it.
Awesome. I'm honored to be doing this with all of you guys and gals. This has been amazing, and thank you people so much for chiming in with the comments and the sideline. And I hope everyone leave comments on this if you're watching it much, way after we do it, which is going to be most of the people. I hope you got something from this and reach out to me. Let me really quick. One of the things that I hear Father John on all the time that I'm not sure gets out there quite enough is Orthodox Sentinel Radio. And it's there's apps to listen to it on your phone, but it's got an amazing bunch of speakers on there. Abbot Trifon, Father John Whiteford, Spirit and Bailey, and stuff like that. So people that are listening, if that is enticing to you, it should be. Check that out. And I will put the links to everyone's media, social media, and all of that in the description for this video. But of course, it's Dissident Mama. You understand that. And I'll link to all of the stuff. We'll do that. And thank you guys.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Can you link to the Ludwell Orthodox Fellowship site as well, southernorthodox.org?
I can do that. You guys, you heard it right there. Southernorthodox.org. Okay.
Because it's awesome and it's triggering to the lefties. So there you go.
There you go. So Orthodox Sentinel Radio, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And thank you, Buck.
Thank
You're
you.
a great moderator. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Buck.
I'm honored to do this, and we're about to go not live anymore. And you guys all stay with me. And to those watching, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll talk soon. This is
Christ
Counterflow.
is risen.
Indeed is risen.
Indeed, he is risen.
He is risen. Yes.